Welcome to Volume 2 of Liquid Drum Theater. I'm Mike Portnoy, as it says right there on the screen. And this is Volume 2, which is focusing on the music of Dream Theater. That's me when I'm a little kid. And this next picture is pretty funny. This is me when I was about 14 or so, my first band, Intruder. And anyway, if you just watched the previous volume, welcome back. If you're joining us starting with this volume, welcome. I'm going to watch the video with you. Right there's Rob and Paul's name, and here you're going to see Phil, and I must give all three of them a lot of credit for the making of these videos, which watching now for the first time in quite some time, I'm still thoroughly enjoying. I think they're incredibly well done, and I'm very proud of them. So, we go into New Millennium, and this footage, as you can see, was recorded in the summer of '98. This was actually the only headlining show we did before joining the Deep Purple ELP tour that summer. So this was like a little bit of a warm-up for that. But this is us in '98. Some members have shorter hair. Derek Cherenia on keyboards. Different lineup than we currently have. If I didn't mention it, this commentary is being recorded June 20th, 2001. I'm in New York City right now, so it's nice looking back and reflecting on some of the stuff. I haven't seen it for a while. Anyway, singing and drumming is something that I've gotten very into the past few years. And I've always had a decent sense of melody and pitch. And being one of the lyricists for the band, in fact I wrote these lyrics, I end up writing a lot of melodies as well and harmonies. In fact I modeled these two-part harmonies after kind of an Alice in Chains sort of thing. But when I demo them, I actually demo them and give them to James, you know, with me singing all the parts. So finally I decided to step up to the plate and try to do it live as well. And since this tour I've been doing it an awful lot and I enjoy it. I don't consider myself to have a great voice, but I do have a pretty good sense of pitch, and I enjoy it. It just gives me something new to do. There you saw McGee's arm. Any of you that have seen the Scenes from New York video, you've seen my tech Jose in a lot of it, but on this tour, the Falling in Symphony tour, I had McGee with me for the whole tour. And he's a great guy and a true character. A lot of fun to have with you on tour. Anyway, so this footage is now about to cut into Bear Tracks. We're about to go from black and white to color. That chorus right there is very U2 inspired. And actually we cut right there from the first verse and chorus, and we actually cut out a bunch of the song and just went straight to the top of the instrumental section here. But there's my big purple monster in all its glory, now that we're in color. And this stuff was recorded at Bear Tracks. This is shortly after we completed the Scenes from a Memory album. As you can see, my hair is growing in a little bit. And you can see a picture of my two kids, Melody and Max, taped onto my cowbell. Those pictures change all the time, so sometimes you see my wife on there, or my dog Bongo, different pictures. So it's funny, my dog Bongo, as well as my wife and daughter, made the cover of Modern Drummer with me. I don't know if many people even noticed that, but they were on the cowbell. Anyway, I'm playing an interesting pattern here using the rims of the drums. And I always try to use different drums, different cymbals to play the patterns on. You know, I don't want to be confined to just a hi-hat or a ride. You know, a lot of times I use a crash or an octavon, or in that case a rim of a drum. You know, utilizing everything on the kit, down to the rims. And this middle section to New Millennium was seriously utilizing the Chapman stick, which you saw John Mayung playing earlier. So it has a very King Crimson-esque vibe to it because of the stick, and then we ended up writing these patterns. And I really like this song. Very diverse. It's one of my favorite songs on the Falling into Infinity album. There I'm using the Max Stacks. Plate and plug, being I already plugged them on the other volume, I'll plug them here. Those are the Max Stacks and also the Max Flashes, which are on the kit, which are my signature Sabian line. alternating hi-hats there, which is a pretty cool effect. Really, that serves no purpose other than a cool stereo effect in the headphones. And then there I am using an octoban as a ride pattern. So like I said earlier, I try different things, not only just cymbals for riding, but drums as well. You could hear the music faded out there, and I just do a little kind of improv to get out of this. So sit back and spend the next 90 minutes with me watching this video. It's been a while, like I said, so I'm looking forward to watching it as well, and hopefully I can add some insight on this commentary track. Not that there's not enough talking as there is. So now we're going to go into Hell's Kitchen, which on the album comes out of Burning My Soul, but the original version of Burning My Soul actually contained this in the middle. And while making the Falling Into Infinity album, Kevin Shirley suggested removing it and making a separate instrumental out of it. There's some very funny outtakes on the end credits of this video of me trying to hang this mallet back up. And I probably, yeah, as you can see, I didn't even get it there. That's why I had to fade away from it. Obviously on the album it was an overdub. But here we go. Anyway, this song is very Rush influenced in terms of its use of odd time signatures, and especially 7/8, 6/8. This whole beginning part is 6/8 and 5/8 alternating back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is straight 6, but as we go along we start to pull the beats away. And we run into a bar of 5, and then a little later on we start jamming a 5, and then we start pulling those beats away and put in bars of 4. So here's your first bar of 5 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that was a bar of 4. Excuse me. It's been a while since I've analyzed this, but anyway, the point is that we're yanking away beats constantly. Here's another yank right here. 3, 4, 1. Okay, so it's bars of 4. Anyway, like I said, this was all originally part of the middle of Burning My Soul. And makes for an interesting instrumental, but it's something that we haven't played that often on tour. It's more of a rarity, so maybe we'll have to add that in. So we're 6, and we're about to set up the 5. As you can see, if you just finished watching the Liquid Tension volume, the first volume, very different drum set surrounding me here. It's obviously an enormous setup. The Purple Monster was really cool, and just as you can see, a wide variety of drums, cymbals, knickknacks. No matter where I swing my arms, I'm bound to hit something. But I actually have 3 of these kits. This is my purple and white American one, and I have a red and white one that I kept in Japan, and then a green and white one that I kept in Europe. Anyway, you can hear the music starting to pick up the intensity because the time signatures are starting to really shift at a constant rate. Now, this was all written for Hell's Kitchen. This whole section did not appear in the original Burning My Soul. So we knew when we yanked it out of Burning My Soul, if it was going to be an instrumental to stand on its own, we needed to write a super majestic ending. And it's still shifting time signatures like all the previous parts. But at the same time, the harmony is totally building to a majestic finale. We kind of modeled it after, the ending of One Last Time. Even though Falling Into Infinity came before Tunes from Memory, we had actually already written the music for One Last Time back in '96. So we wanted to get that kind of vibe when we wrote this climax here. And I think it's a really great finale to this piece, and then it leads into Lines in the Sand, which you'll be able to see later on in this video as a bonus track. all the fun knickknacks. So let me hand it over to the other mic, the 1999 version of Mike. This is the 2001 version, signing out. Dream Theater and Bear Track Studios have had a very long relationship. We actually have recorded many albums here. In addition to our latest album, we also did the Change of Seasons EP here and Images and Words back in 1991. And we have a lot of good memories from this place. You know, I remember being in that drum room, laying down the drum tracks for Pull Me Under, you know, back in 91, and we really had no idea what the future held for us, and it turns out that that ended up being a landmark session for us and really changed a lot of things for us, and it all began here. And this time around, for the Metropolis 2 Scenes from a Memory album, we had the really very cool experience of just being shacked up here. And it's the first time that we actually shacked up in a studio and wrote an album in the studio. In the past, we would be at our home, you know, rehearsal spot, and we'll spend months and months and months writing the material, demoing it, and then go into the studio to record the album. But this time around, we decided to just move into Bear Tracks, and we spent, you know, a good part of 1999 here writing and recording the album simultaneously. And that whole writing and recording approach was inspired by the experiences that myself and John Petrucci and Jordan had doing the Liquid Tension albums. It was very interesting, and similar to the Liquid Tension album, where when creating my drum parts, I didn't have too much time to reflect on them. So similarly to the Liquid Tension album, I had to create my drum parts while we were creating the music. And in some cases, you know, the next day I would be laying my drum parts down, you know, and having to record parts that I'm going to live with for the rest of my life, but, you know, only having maybe one day to refine them. So, you know, breaking down some of these drum parts here for the purpose of this video, similarly to the Liquid Tension stuff I did, there's going to be some variations because I didn't have as much time to nail down and completely overanalyze every single drum part. A lot of it was based upon spontaneity and improvisation and live raw energy. So to the best of my capabilities, I'm going to reproduce a lot of those drum parts for you here. In other cases, you'll see some variations. And in all cases, hopefully I will capture the spirit of the song. Okay, Home. This is a favorite of mine from the Scenes from a Memory album. It's always a great song to play live as well. There's so much energy. And as I mentioned a little later on in the original video track, so much of this song is tied in with Metropolis. You know, the first Metropolis from Images and Words. There's musical themes that tie in. There's lyrical themes. There's drum parts. And I break those down later on, but for me it was a lot of fun, you know, to approach those flashbacks or whatever from all three points of view. I was able to do it with my drum parts, and then when writing the music with the rest of the guys, you know, with the chord progressions and the riffs, and then as the lyricist to this song, I was able to play with the words as well. So I really got to tie in the whole Metropolis thing with this song in particular. You could hear my vocals along with James there, and once again a two-part harmony thing. And there's a third harmony that joins in on that one. So once again you have my lyrics, and which, you know, I guess resulted in my vocals kind of playing a big part in that as well. All right there, that's a drum fill. Right from the first Metropolis, as I mentioned. This part originally was phrased in different odd times, but I ended up in the end ended up playing in 4 and the guitar to the odd times around my 4/4. I think it's phrased in, I end up recording it wrong. I think 7 and 5 and 4, or some combination of those 3 times equaling 16. And I stayed in 4/4, or 16/16. And as any of you that have ever been to one of my clinics know, that's such a big part of my style and my way of writing and creating, is just combining numbers. This progression right here is directly out of Metropolis 1, these 4/4s. Another interesting thing is that the music you're hearing, the music I'm playing along to here, are different mixes than what ended up being on the Scenes from Memory album. These are actually the David Bottrill mixes. So you hear different things. I think the tambourine is a little more predominant there. Some of the background vocals are sitting a little higher or a little lower in the mixes. But I thought those were really cool mixes, actually, the ones that David did. As were Kevin's. We basically ended up having 2 really good sets of mixes and picked and choose between them. You can hear little Chinese symbols being used on those downbeats in there. These are Jungle Groove. This is taken directly out of Metropolis Part 1.
She poured out her soul and let it cry. I remember I was told as I moved up its bone, for each one that has died. I never thought that I could carry on with this life, but I can't resist myself.
This coming groove is something I break down after the track is finished, but one of the cooler grooves in this song, utilizing the Max Stacks and playing 16th note patterns with the right hand while driving with the kick and snare drum, with the kicks, double kick and snare. That echo, the delay on the vocal saying home is a little more predominant than the Bottrill mixes. And that's a favorite fill of mine as well. Jordan's keyboard part is also coming in a lot more here. And the background vocals singing love, deceit, and death. I don't even remember. It's been so long because we ended up not singing those vocals live. Those are a lot further back in the mix on these mixes, which is where I kind of intended them to be when I wrote those words. And that's kind of why we ended up taking them out of the mix live, because they weren't supposed to be as upfront as they ended up being on the album. I love those double cymbal hits. Something that's a big part of my style. Rather than just crashing on the one, I love coming in either on the upbeat of 4 or the one, the 4 and a 1. Something that I copped actually from first person I heard predominantly using it was a drummer named Mark Miller, who used to play drums for Talis, Billy Sheehan's old band, who I used to absolutely love in the early 80s. And there's a live album, and he does a lot of those fills with the double cymbals. And then I started to notice them all over the place, like in obscure places, like the drummer from Heart in Barracuda was using them a lot, and then the drummer for Simple Minds, that hit song, Don't You Forget About Me, he was doing that as well. I gotta say, this is one of the only parts in this drum video I don't like, is these cheesy psychedelic effects, but this section was really based on a keyboard solo or sitar solo, and then all these sound effects between the casino on the left side and the section on the right side. we needed to kind of make it interesting to watch. But I was able to play some songs in their entirety in this volume, in the Dream Theater volume. Because the label that owns the music was very cooperative, as they should have been. But so I was able to play through some of these in their entirety, which is great to be able to really see the drum parts being played. Another great thing about this DVD, and whoa, there was a Luger right there. One of the great things about an instructional video on DVD is being able to use the multiple camera angle feature, which will hopefully be utilized a significant amount, or at least enough throughout this video to make it, very useful. Because I think it's a great feature to be able to have on a drum video. It makes perfect sense to be able to analyze maybe a kick drum patterns or what have you. And Hudson Music is leading the way, because I don't know of any other companies that have done instructional videos on DVD yet, and it seems like such a natural, and hopefully this video will be a bit of a pioneer in leading the way for it. There's some percussion overdubs that I love adding tambourines and shakers in this video, and then now live, James, our singer, actually helps out with that live, which is good because we have so many instrumental sections. It gives him the ability to do something and stay on stage with us. You know what, that fill, if I remember correctly, and the reason I may have looked in the camera there is because that fill I really wanted to do in the album. And when I was doing my drum tracks, I forgot to do it. So that was my opportunity. Oh! That was my opportunity to get it in there. Kind of making fun of myself there with that fill as well. That's different. That's not on the CD. It's nice to be able to play around with these. And when I did this instructional video, it was really my first time playing these songs through, because we had just come off of recording the album, and when we recorded it, it was so spontaneous, and in some cases recorded in pieces, that I have never gone back and played again. We obviously hadn't been on tour yet in support of this album, so you're actually seeing the very first performance of these songs here on this video, and later on you'll see me doing the Dance of Eternity, and it was really hard. It was very difficult to learn that song, and as I'll probably talk about later, I ended up having to punch in all over the place there, because it was just impossible to play these pieces from start to finish, having never done it. I guess the sitar is the cue for the video effect. Here we're playing in 1916, which is something I talk about later. Oh no, it's not 1916 yet, we're in 7 now. Excuse me, but coming up we're about to play this thing in 1916, which is something they break down a little later. Different time signatures thrown in. Here's the 1916. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I break that down a little later. This whole section was great, though. Those tablas I can't claim to have played those. Those were actually attached to Jordan's sample. So he's actually triggering those. And I would love to play a tabla someday, but Jordan takes up so much space in our songs. He does the keyboards, he does the strings, he's the symphony, he's the percussionists. Can't get anything done with that guy in the band.
There were many things that made writing the new Dream Theater record a lot of fun. First of all, writing a concept album is a format that really was the perfect type of writing format for us, because we were able to write as if it was one giant 75-minute song, and we were able to constantly bring back themes and foreshadow themes and have themes played in different time signatures, which is a way that we've always written anyway within the context of single songs. Now we were able to do it in the context of a big album. But the other thing that made the writing process so much fun was that we were writing based on a concept of one of our older songs, Metropolis. So throughout the entire writing process, we always had free rein to reference a piece of music or a lyric or anything from the first Metropolis and constantly tie it in. The Dance of Eternity, the instrumental in the album, obviously utilizes a lot of Metropolis bits and pieces. But the song Home, I think, really, most of all, utilizes all different Metropolis bits and pieces. Being that I wrote the lyrics to this song as well, I was able to write a lot of lyrical references into this. So, for those of you that are insightful readers or lyric listeners, you'll notice lots of references to the original Metropolis. Musically, there's a lot of references to Metropolis in this song. The chorus itself is actually a progression taken from the first Metropolis. The riff that comes out of the first chorus is taken from the first Metropolis. So beyond just the lyrical references and the band's musical references, I took it a step further and even had little drum references throughout the song Home. So for those of you drummers that are familiar with the original Metropolis, I'm sure you've caught a bunch of these little wink-winks, but I want to just point out a few in case they slip by you. The first obvious one is the fill that I do leading into the first verse. It's the same fill that I do leading into the first verse of Metropolis Part 1. So let me play that for you now. Okay, after I do that fill leading into the first verse, which is the identical fill from Images and Words, I go into the same groove, just a straight downbeat pump, dum, 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 and then I actually play the Metropolis rhythm on the hi-hat while simultaneously playing the pump, like this. So there was a second drum reference to the original Metropolis. Then coming out of the first verse, I also played the same fill that I played coming out of the first verse of Metropolis Part 1, which is this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me slow that down for you. And even slower. The similarities don't end there. The whole jungle groove that I'm playing on the second verse is the same jungle groove that I play on the second verse of the original Metropolis. So let me play that for you now. 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the grooves I'm playing in Home on the second pre-chorus of the song, it's a double bass groove, and it's incorporating playing 16th notes with my right hand on the ride bell and on some of the stacks I have. And basically, I think that was inspired, well, A, by Terry Bozzio, who's always done these type of rhythms, but, you know, once you stack these cymbals, they're such quick sounding cymbals that you can start to play rhythms on them. So a lot of the grooves that I play on the new Dream Theater album is incorporating 16th note or triplet patterns just on the stacks themselves, just because they're so rhythmic. So let me break down the groove I play on the second pre-chorus of the song. It's playing 16th notes on the bass drums, and I'm playing like straight downbeats on the snare, and then basically I'm just filling out the groove with 16th notes following my feet on my right hand. And the first set is on the ride, then the second set is on the low stack, then I do another one on the ride, then I do one on the medium stack. So let me play it for you at regular speed, and then I'll try to slow it down for you. 1, 2, 3. There's a big fill that happens in the middle of the guitar solo, and it's another one of those traditional Mike Portnoy bag of tricks sort of fills between the hands and the feet. Except what makes this fill actually cool is that the phrasing is backwards. Most of the times when I do these fills, it's starting on the snare and then going around on the toms and the kick drums. But in this particular case, I'm starting on the toms, moving up on the snare. So it's got a real kind of backwards feel to it. And what makes it even cooler is after I laid down my drum tracks, John actually learned it and incorporated it into the guitar solo on top. So it's actually now the two of us doing it together, which is very cool. But anyway, let me play the fill for you at normal speed, then I'll break it down so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, there's another fill that I do towards the end of the song. It's actually at the end of the last chorus before it leads back into the main theme. And it's another one of these fills from the Mike Portnoy toolbox. So I'm going to play the fill for you now, and you'll notice it's very similar to the one I just broke down that's in the middle of the guitar solo, but this is more of a straight-ahead downbeat version. So here we go. So all of these examples were to show you how a drum part could be very memorable by itself even. All of these were grooves that hopefully you picked up on your own without me having to point them out to you. Hopefully when you heard Home for the first time, you caught all of these references. But basically they're an example of how the drums should always be a musical, expressive instrument, not just strictly rhythms, but something that's going to create something memorable, and that could be carried over, you know, even from song to song.
Here's the drum intro to 6 O'Clock, which is something that I suppose kind of stands out in my repertoire of drum things because it starts off the Awake album. The actual entire drum track to 6 O'Clock is pretty difficult. When I laid it down, it was a real, challenge. it's just high energy from start to finish. A lot of quick double bass patterns and things like that. Right there. That. Very tough patterns. Oh my goodness, where did that hair come from? As you can see, I'm using a different drum set there, which shall go unnamed, as well as the drumsticks. But that's what I was doing back in '95, and this was taken from the Florida Drum Expo. I did a clinic there, and it was a drum show. Who else played there? J.L. Robinson, Sheila E., Liberty DeVito, Dom Famularo, Steve Smith. And whenever I play these drum festivals, it's so intimidating to me, I gotta be honest. You know, I have great admiration for so many drummers out there. And, you know, I'm one of those people that will forever feel like the student. And when I see these great players, I'm just always so inspired, and I'm just almost scared to play in front of them. And, you know, I think the only reason I'm able to do it is because I, you know, have finally come to realize that, you know, different drummers have different styles, and I can't expect to be better or as good as these people. We're just all different. There is no good, bad, better, worse. Everybody has different styles, and you know, each different drummer brings different things to the plate. And but anyway, doing drum solos, I mentioned this briefly at the end of the first volume. I don't feel it's my forte. As I mentioned in the other one, I feel like I'm more of a musical visionary, you know, in terms of composition and structure and delivery, and, you know, just the way that I put things together and oversee the operation of all the musical aspects of the band. You know, the drumming is just another aspect for me. But anyway, there are so many drummers who are really great soloists who I admire. One of my favorites of all time is Simon Phillips. And I remember when I was at Berkeley, I had a video of him from Zildjian Day. And I guess at that point it would have been like maybe 84. I mean, I was at Berkeley at 85, 86, but I guess the video was probably from 84 or 83. And he just played the ultimate solo. You know, the ultimate combination of groove and powerhouse fills and double bass. I obviously love Terry Bozzio as a soloist as well. I mean, he takes it to a whole nother level in terms of almost like a drum orchestra.
One of the things that constantly comes up at my clinics is questions about double bass and double bass technique. And it's something I've become very comfortable with because I've been playing double bass for almost as long as I've been playing drums. And I've always played with two bass drums. So it's just something that's become very natural for me. It seems like it's a natural thing to do, that your left foot should also be as utilized as your right foot. Some of the advice I can give on how to try to develop double bass playing and be able to play it steadily, the very first thing I would recommend is to work with a click track or a metronome. And Tama makes a thing called the Rhythm Watch, which I have mounted right here on my kit. And the Rhythm Watch actually is a very, very valuable tool. And basically, you could program or listen to quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. You could program the different downbeats. It's a great, great tool for practicing any kind of grooves, but for double bass, it's awesome. And one of the most important things with double bass is to start slow. So many drummers sit down and they immediately want to start playing Slayer and Metallica songs, but you have to start from the beginning first and start with those Motley Crue songs and work your way up. And that's the way I developed. I started off learning just straight 16th note patterns, and then slowly, as time went on, I would slowly kick up the metronome and bring it up and slowly start to raise the tempo, and then I started to get more and more comfortable with the quicker speeds. So let me break down for you just the most basic double bass pattern so you could sort of understand the way that it's approached. Okay, I'm going to start with just a basic double bass 16th note pattern. And what I'll do is I'll start with just a single bass, and then I'll show you how you could bring in the left foot on the upbeats. And basically, if you were to be playing with a metronome, if this was your quarter note, 1, 2, 3, 4, ba, ba. The eighth notes would be ba, 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 ba. So that's what my right foot is going to be playing. Ba, 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 ba. My left foot is then going to come in on the upbeats. Ba, 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 ba. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. 1, 2, 3, 4.
One thing I always get asked about is, for somebody that plays drums for so long each night, why are your legs so skinny? No, that's not what I get asked. I get asked all the time about heels up or heels down, and as you can see there in a little box, it's most definitely heels up. I've always sat pretty high, although I'm bringing my height down now these days. But because I always sat high, in order to really get leverage on the pedal, I would always have to play heels up and kind of dig in with my toes.
Anyway, what I was giving you an example of there was you could see that I was bringing the left foot in and out. And when playing these patterns, I'll concentrate on my main kick, in my case the right foot, always being locked in with that metronome, with the downbeat, with the quarter note, with the eighth notes. And no matter what the tempo is, I'll concentrate on my main kick being locked in. And what I was just playing, pulling my left foot in and out, you were able to hear that the right foot was always locked in. So let me show you how you could start to mix it up and play different patterns. Like, for instance, we have a song called Under a Glass Moon off of Images and Words, and that's based off of these double bass patterns. Basically, I'm just playing a straight beat. I'm going to show you how that beat sounds with only one bass drum, and then I'll show you what it sounds like with just a single left kick drum brought in, every couple beats, how it completely changes the feel of the entire groove. So here's the Under a Glass Moon groove with just one foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you could hear the Under a Glass Moon pattern with only one bass drum is really incredibly basic. In fact, it could be the drum beat to an AC/DC song. But as soon as you add in that left foot, now watch the completely different dynamic that it takes on. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So here's the Under a Glass Moon groove, which, like 6 o'clock, is another one of those kind of trademark drum patterns that have kind of developed through the years. And the running joke for this pattern, I guess I must have said it in an interview years ago or something, is that I wrote this drum pattern while sitting on the toilet. And that running joke has kind of stuck with me through the years. But I think it's actually true. You don't know how many times I do my practicing while sitting on the toilet. There's great acoustics in the bathroom as well. But a lot of times, sitting on the toilet or dinner table or driving a car, which I wouldn't recommend, my feet and hands are always going, and I'm just coming up with different patterns. One thing I should mention about this footage, you could see a few people standing there. This is a Hampton Beach casino ballroom or something like that. And like I mentioned earlier, it was the night before we began the Deep Purple tour. So it was the only headlining show, so it was our only opportunity to film for purposes of this video. And this venue has a ridiculous policy where the people are not allowed to stand up, which really made me crazy. So every once in a while when they show the audience, it looks like there's only like 5 people in the audience. Well, no, it's actually filled. It's just that there's only 5 people brave enough to stand up to the security guards in the front of the venue. So now we're seeing Fatal Tragedy. Once again, you're hearing the David Bottrill mix. And this is the famous Shrink and Grow section, which I break down after I'm through playing it, so you'll hear the breakdown of it. But this whole section, this is a very Megadeth-influenced riff, old Megadeth. Cool little bass patterns in them. This thing right here, this pattern is something that reoccurs later on in the Dance of Eternity. And this is actually, we call this the Meshuggah section. There's a Scandinavian band called Meshuggah, for those of you that don't know who they are, and they're absolutely insane. Kind of progressive death metal, just with these absolutely insane rhythms. So these are the Meshuggah riffs. Now here begins the Shrink and Grow. We're in E right here. Like 4 bars, I suppose. That goes to the F sharp. And I'll count this along for you if I can do it. Back to E. 1, 2, riff. F sharp. 2, 3. 1, and then a riff. The F sharp. The concept, as I'm going to talk about later, is that it's shrinking, and each time we're yanking away bars. And now it's going to grow during this solo, during the keyboard solo. That's 1, and then a riff. And then now there's going to be 2, riff. Now back to the E. 3, and then riff. 1, 2, 3, riff. What a phenomenon. Every F sharp section is a what a phenomenon, which I talk about later as well. I love the bass line during this section. It's one of my favorite bass lines of John's stuff. Very Delishian. This is all unison and harmony between John and Jordan. Using the Max Stacks a lot. Different rhythms. Very cool thing. My favorite one. Ah, a weird shot right there of me going to hit a cymbal and actually just striking air with my right hand. Forgot about that. Alright, let's hear what I have to say about the Shrink and Grow. One of the most challenging sections on the new Dream Theater album is the guitar and keyboard solos at the end of Fatal Tragedy. And this was a section that we called the Shrink and Grow section. Because essentially what was happening is that when we wrote the rhythm tracks, we created a rhythm section that essentially shrunk and took bits away, and then at a certain point it played a unison thing, and then it built itself back up and grew. So there you have Shrink and Grow. So this is the Shrink and Grow section I'm going to play for you. To understand the concept behind it, it's pretty twisted, and it takes a lot of concentration to play. And the fact that John and Jordan are playing completely crazy solos on top of it doesn't help matters for me when I'm trying to concentrate on playing this. But essentially, there's 2 sections. You have an E section, which is let me check the key. Yeah, very good. How's that for relative pitch? That's the E section. And then the second riff is an F sharp, which is da 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 da. What a phenomenon. What a phenomenon. Anyway, you have these 2 parts. You have the E and the F sharp. What we did was, rather than just alternating back and forth for a typical solo section, we tried to make it interesting, and we tried the Shrink and Grow technique. So what's happening is we're starting with the E section, and we're doing a total of 4 E's.
But on the fourth one, we're doing the riff. So essentially, the 4 E's would be. Then it goes to the F sharp. 4 F sharps. So that was 4 and 4. Now we go to 3 E's. And remember, the last one is always the riff. So now the 3 E's is. Now 3 F sharps. Now to 2 E's. 2 F sharps. And now this last one, we go back to E. It's just the riff because it's only one. So now that we've shrunk the entire arrangement, now we're going to grow. The arrangement's going to grow back to its original forms. And if you followed me this far, not only are you crazy, but you're pretty smart because I'm still trying to figure this thing out. It's an absolutely bizarre concept and something that was a challenge to write and to actually execute. And I feel like a fool sitting here singing it and counting it for you, but it was the best way to sort of describe what I'm talking about. So now I'm going to actually play it for you. Okay, when we hit the E right here, it's going to be the top of the shrink and grow section. 3, 4. 2, 3. Riff. 2, 3. Now down to 3. 2, riff. Now down to 2. Riff. 1, 2. Riff. 1. Unison. Okay, now we're going to grow. That was the 1 riff. Now 1 F sharp. 1, 2, riff. 1, 2, now up to 3. Riff. Now up to 4. Riff. 2, 3, 4. There you have it. So we're back to Hampton Beach, and we're actually going to have a full version of this at the end of this disc. It's a bonus track, Lines in the Sand, which I think is probably my favorite song on Going Into Infinity. As I mentioned earlier, the thing that bothered me about this gig was people having to sit, which really frustrated me. But another thing was that I wasn't able to use my drum riser. I'm basically on the same ground level as the other guys, which I'm not used to. And throughout a tour, I have a riser, which helps me see into the audience better and helps me be able to communicate with the other guys a little easier. And for some reason, this venue, I guess the ceilings were too low, so I couldn't use my riser. So all in all, it was not the best of venues to be shooting this footage in, but as I mentioned, it was the only headlining show before the Deep Purple tour, so it was the only option we had. Anyway, so tune in at the end of this video for the end of this DVD. Actually, it's not even the end because it's just a button flick away, so you can see the full version of Lines in the Sand. But this song has many different kinds of parts. I mean, this is a very jazzy kind of thing. And believe it or not, those fills were me doing the fills, and then Derek just matched them on the piano. I mean, you'd think it was the other way around because they are very piano-oriented, but I did the drum tracks first, and even on the demo. Through the years, I've done a lot of drum clinics, and at my clinics, if you've ever been to one of them, you know that I spend a lot of time talking about odd time signatures and breaking them down, giving examples of how, 9/8, 7/8, 5/8 and even 16th note subdivisions relate to 4/4 time. And the one example I always give in 16th note subdivisions is grooving in 1916 time. And it's weird because through the years at my clinics, I've always used that as an example, just arbitrarily. And it turns out that the ending of the song Home ended up having a riff in 1916. So what I'm going to do is explain to you exactly how to understand 1916, the same way I do at my clinics, and then I'll show you how I apply it to this groove in Home. Okay, I'm going to try to take a very large concept and squeeze it down to a very quick, understandable one for the sake of moving forward without taking up too much time on this subject. But the most important thing about odd time signatures is seeing how they relate to 4/4 time. And I always say, if you use a drumstick as a sort of musical timeline, you could see how everything relates to 4/4. If you put 4/4 smack in the center, you could see that 3/4 is 1/4 note less. You could see that 5/4 is 1/4 note more. And the same way that you would look at a ruler with inches and half inches and quarter inches, that's the same way you look at music with quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. So for instance, in between 3/4 and 4/4, which could be broken down to eighth notes as 6/8 and 8/8, in between those 3/4 and 4/4, you would find 7/8. In between 4/4 and 5/4, you would find 9/8. So that's how to understand eighth note subdivisions. Now, now talking about 1916, on the surface, somebody would completely be intimidated by that time signature and not know how to approach it. But if you understand it in your head first and figure out the mathematics and how it relates to 4, actually playing it is not that difficult. Basically, 1916, you're going to break it down into 16th notes and see how it relates to 4/4. So 4/4 time could be 4 quarter notes. If you were to break that into eighth notes, you'd have 8 eighth notes. And then if you were to break it into 16th notes, you'd have 16 16th notes. So 4/4 time essentially is the same as 16/16 time. So let me play that for you. So, right there was a simple 4/4 groove, but if you wanted to be technical about it, you can count it as a 16/16 groove. So now, to play something in 1916, all you're going to do is play a 4/4 groove, and then you're going to add 3 extra 16th notes. So if 4/4 is 16/16, 1916 would just be 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1, 2, 3, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1, 2, 3, 1. So let me play that for you. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 1916 as used in the song Home.
Okay, The Dance of Eternity. This is the big instrumental on Scenes from a Memory. Strangely enough, this shot begins with my drum head from Falling into Infinity, which this song is not on. But I didn't have my Scenes from Memory drum heads yet at this point. But anyway, this song is an incredibly complicated piece of music. Maybe one of the most complex pieces we've written. It's just filled with so many odd time signatures, and the arrangement is pretty unorthodox. And that's stuff I talk about later, after the performance is through. But as I briefly mentioned earlier, when we filmed this video, I had yet to play these songs from start to finish. Because when we recorded them and wrote them, especially a song like this, we wrote in chunks. Maybe, 5 or 6 different chunks of minute-long, pieces. It was so complicated. We would write a chunk, and then, before I had a chance to forget it, we would roll tape and I would get my drum tracks. So when it came time to do this instructional video, the record had just been finished and we hadn't toured yet. So I had yet to play this drum track from start to finish. And once we started rolling the cameras, I realized that I was not as prepared as I thought I was, because it was impossible. Not impossible, but it was just really difficult for me to nail. So we ended up cutting this video the same way that we recorded the drum tracks on the album, which was in chunks and pieces. And then I went home and looked at all the video footage, and I had to go through each take and decide which sections were played right and which were not, and then hand it in to Phil and Rob and Paul. It's an intense list of different takes for them to cut together. And you wouldn't even know it. I think it came out pretty seamless. And of course now I've played this track a couple hundred times throughout the Metropolis 2000 tour. So now it's a piece of cake. Now I can, play it with one hand and eat a tuna fish sandwich with the other. But at the time it was really difficult. Right here you're hearing one of Jordan's traditional crazy ragtime pieces. As I mentioned on the Liquid Tension Experiment volume, he's always horsing around with those things and just putting them in. So there was a time where we got to use it. The progression that's going on here is something that we use later in Finally Free. A lot of double bass going on here, and now here comes the bass solo. We knew we wanted to have a bass solo in this song, in keeping with the middle of the first Metropolis. Rather than a tapping approach, John took the distorted bass Lemmy approach. A lot of different time signatures going on here. Although actually this little bit here is in 4. It's just a syncopated pattern. But once we get past this section, a lot of different time signatures. I don't know why I didn't play double bass here. That one thing that I'm playing here with the upbeat groove really would have been cool with double bass, but I didn't. Now this part was very difficult for me to nail. Not only in the writing and the recording of the drum tracks, but also when playing it for this video, this cross-sticking thing. It's basically me and Jordan are doing a pattern together, and here you can see I'm using both hi-hats. So my left foot, in the midst of all this chaos, my left foot is switching back and forth between the 2 hi-hats. And that Max Stacks pattern, the Gnip-Gnop pattern, is also very difficult. A lot of ghost notes on the snare. Yeah, that whole little bit right there, that last 30 seconds is incredibly challenging. Like I said, now I can kind of nail it, but at the time it was really hard to get comfortable. That's the one moment, and once again, I shouldn't be pointing it out, but of course I kind of have to. That was the one moment in the filming of this video that I missed a beat, and coming in on that downbeat there after the double bass in China and the film. This part is also tremendously challenging. These accents on the right hi-hat. Now, from this point on, from this point to the end, was written in '96. We wrote an original version of Metropolis Part 2 in '96, which consisted of most of Overture, and then this whole section of Dance of Eternity, and also One Last Time, instrumentally. The version from '96 was only instrumental. So when it came time to writing this instrumental, we knew there were these bits that we definitely wanted to use. So we just took this whole chunk and tossed it in. And this whole chunk leads into the finale of One Last Time. Very challenging piece of music, but something I'm very proud of. I think it really kind of captured the Metropolis instrumental spirit.
The number one question I get asked the most, other than, hey dude, why'd you cut your hair, is how the hell do you guys remember all that stuff? So what I'm going to do right now is show you how we remember all that stuff. We have a charting system, and when we're working on writing a song, we'll spend a lot of time working on the arrangement and writing out charts. We have blackboards in the studio, or we'll each have our personal sheets. And besides the actual notation of the songs, the arrangement of the songs is usually just as confusing, if not sometimes more, because our arrangements are sometimes very untraditional. So what I have here is a whole bunch of notes. These are my charts from the making of this album, and what made writing this album even more difficult is that, like I've mentioned, there wasn't much time for reflection. So there was a lot of taking notes and a lot of reading off of charts, trying to remember the arrangements. And right here, this is the big instrumental chart. We knew we wanted to write an instrumental on this album. In fact, we ended up writing two. One was the overture for the album, and then the other was the Dance of Eternity. And the Dance of Eternity basically was a typical Dream Theater instrumental in the tradition of Yitzhak Jam or Erotomania, or even the middle of Metropolis Part 1. And basically, when we write an instrumental, we just try to throw everything in, and we just go for it. There's no rules, and anything goes. And with writing a big album revolved around Metropolis Part 2, we knew that there had to be this incredibly sick instrumental in the middle of Metropolis, the way that there was a crazy instrumental section in the middle of the first Metropolis. In the case of this album, the instrumental section sits pretty much in the middle of the record, and it turned into a whole 6.5-minute piece called The Dance of Eternity. So knowing that we wanted to write this incredibly crazy instrumental, we basically made a list of a lot of the crazy riffs that we had floating around, and this is the riffs du jour category. Originally, we had the Metropofest 99. But in any case, we had the list of riffs that we knew we wanted to incorporate, some of which made it, some of which didn't. And then as we went along arranging and writing the song, we ended up with the final menu in this case. And all of our sections are given crazy references. It's not like verse, chorus, bridge, solo. It's UK number 1, piano break, bass break, Meshuggah low, Meshuggah high, Zappa unisons, Cantina, Metallica. They always have references to other bands, sections that things remind us of, Marillion, Genesis. And this is the way that we remember the parts. So in answer to that question, how the hell do you remember this stuff? This is how we remember this stuff. Okay, so this is actually my personal chart for this particular song, The Dance of Eternity, which the working title was song number 7. The entire album was songs 1, song 2, song number 3, so we wrote the entire album. Every song had a number. But in any case, song number 7 was The Dance of Eternity, or the Metropo Mental. But this was my personal chart. This was actually the writing chart and the master chart. But once we got the arrangement down, I created my own chart, and I do this for every one of our songs. So if you were to follow the arrangement of the song, usually I'll have the arrangement name, you know, intro pump, UK number 1, the amount of times. Usually on the left side I'll have the key that the section is in, so I can, you know, refer to it when discussing it with the other band members. And then on the right, you'll see sometimes I'll have numbers or odd time signatures, just a basic chart. I mean, this is obviously amateur notation. If you were to look at Jordan's charts, he actually notates everything. But this is my sort of shorthand way of remembering the arrangements, especially when you're writing the album on the spot in the studio. And to take it a step further, there was a section towards the end of this that got absolutely out of hand with odd time signatures. And this is the actual chart for it. And what I'm going to do is actually count through this section of the song with you. So you could see exactly all of the odd time signatures that are constantly shifting and changing. And this was the actual chart that I used to help me get through the recording of this song. It wasn't easy. So we're going to play through it's sort of the end of the instrumental of the Dance of Eternity, and I'm going to just point along and count out loud and see if you could sort of follow all of the different odd time signatures as we go along. Walk with us, if you will, through the nightmare which we call the Dance of Eternity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh. This is what still gives me nightmares, but there you have it. That's the way to count through the chart and make your way through the Dance of Eternity. Okay, here's my drum solo from the Falling into Infinity tour. This is in the middle of Caught in a Web. The thing I really enjoyed about the drum solo on this tour, as you're going to see, is that I shared it with the audience. And it all stemmed from early on this tour. It was part of the Japanese leg of the tour. We were doing a show in Nagoya, Japan. And we play some big places over there, and the drum set, the stage was so big that the drum set was so far away from the front row of the audience. The stage was big, and then once we got to the front, there was this huge barricade. So the people were so far away, I felt so incredibly detached. And halfway through the show, I looked back at McGee and I said, "Get me a drum case." And I had in my mind that once we got to the drum solo, I was just going to take the drum case and go out into the pit and just I needed to have some contact with the audience. I mean, I really need contact when I'm on stage. To me, that's the most important thing, is the interaction. So anyway, McGee gave me this drum case. I went out, and during the drum solo, I just, I pulled some guy out of the audience and had him play on this drum case with me. And it went over so well, and I felt really good sharing, the moment with somebody from the audience, that I ended up incorporating it into my drum solo on the whole rest of the tour. By the way, right there, you're hearing me switch the snare settings on the snare with my foot pedal, which I had on this kit. Basically, the foot pedal is loosening and tightening the snare. The snares, and it also locks into different positions. So
so I could either play with the pedal up and down, almost like a timpani. And I used that that idea and incorporated it into the Tama Melody Master snares, the signature snare that I have on the market now. It would have been too expensive to utilize the foot pedal, so we took the same idea and made a manual three-way throw-off. But anyway, back to what I was saying about jamming with the audience. I enjoyed it so much that we ended up doing this for the rest of the tour, except I didn't use a drum case. I used an actual drum. So we had one of my extra drums from the smaller kit that I was using on this tour. Basically, you could see McGee's standing there holding it, and there's a microphone attached to it. And at some point, I take it into the audience. And up until this point in the show, I usually watch the front row and see who's playing air drums, and I would usually be able to get a sense of who was a drummer, and at that point I would come out and jam with them. And basically here on the video, we took footage from a bunch of different shows, and you could see it was pretty amusing. Sometimes I would be wrong. Sometimes I would pick somebody that was totally not a drummer. Here's a drum solo where I'm playing the drum solo on the floor and on my hardware and anywhere else I can hit, showing that you could kind of play drums anywhere. But anyway, some nights I would pick out somebody that was really good. Other nights there would be somebody that was just so obviously not a drummer. By the way, I had to pay for that mic. No. There's McGee with a pair of sticks ready to go. So this footage is still from Hampton Beach. The guys
Let's see some lights up here. Light the stage up. Let's see this homeboy.
This guy's wearing a Patriots shirt, and this guy was good. This guy's probably psyched right now. This is probably his first appearance on DVD. And guess what, dude? You're not even getting paid for the royalties. Oh, great. Lawsuit. No. Every once in a while, you would run into somebody that could jam. And this guy was jamming. And then, of course, I would quiet everybody down, and I would try to get the call and response thing happening. That rhythm right there is a traditional Japanese hand clap that the legendary Mr. Udo in Japan taught us. And it's something that I've utilized through the years into my drum solo. This guy was supposed to just go bump, 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 bump. And he's going for it. I eventually have to take the drum away from him. Good job, dude. Now we cut away. Now this footage was, oh, there you go, it's from Chicago. This was the Vic Theater. One of my favorite places to play. Not only the Vic, but Chicago, the city of Chicago. Always great shows there. Now, if I remember correctly, this guy did not get the concept of shaving a haircut. There's also a shot at the very, very end of this video of my daughter coming out and playing with me, and that was also taken from this show. He couldn't even get the concept of call and answer. There we go. He was tempted to go right through the drum at that point. I saw that moment where he considered it. Japanese hand clap. I can't believe I'm doing audio commentary, but this guy's doing a drum solo with me. Yeah, he got it. This is Maritime Hall in San Francisco. Maybe it was this guy that didn't get it. It was always in good fun, though. I really enjoyed doing this. In fact, I have some ideas for some things possibly on the next tour. So all of you air drummers, make sure you sit in the first row. This was taken from Irving Plaza in New York. Of course, playing New York is always fun. That's our home turf. Oh, this was okay. There was a part in the tour where I ended up. Derek had some samples, so I'd go over to his keyboard and trigger the samples, but they didn't always work. There's Michael Buffer. Please, if you know Michael Buffer, don't tell him that I did that on this video, please. He goes after everybody. That's because I was a huge boxing fan for so many years. I must say I kind of lost track of it through the years, but that was always, it seemed so fitting, being a boxing fan and being a drummer. Anyway, we end the solo back here in New York at Irving Plaza. There you go. Thanks to all you guys that jammed with me there. New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Hampton Beach. This is where we pretty much wrap this video up. We segue back to Hampton Beach, and I believe this is the first time you're seeing it in color and full screen without the letterbox. Yeah. And this is the ending of Learning to Live. Derek's sporting a very shiny silver shirt that night. Gotta love Derek's fashion sense. I'm only joking. It's good fun. Well, anyway, geez, if you've stuck around this long, thanks for staying with me. It's been a lot of fun watching this. I really am proud of these two videos. You know, I think there's a lot of entertaining stuff on here. Things that are probably enjoyable if you're just a fan, and if you're a drummer, hopefully you were able to pick up some things that you could utilize into your own playing. We just segued into the ending of A Change of Seasons. Yeah. Yay Rob, yay Paul. Thank you guys for calling me up to do this DVD, and maybe we'll do another video in a few years. But anyway, these end credits have the outtakes of me trying to hang the mallet back up on the gong.
So the problem is I keep
And
this thing back up and it
I think it was A Bug's Life by Disney, which I've watched with my kids so many times. It kind of gave me the idea to do this at the end. But anyway, thanks a lot for hanging in there. Thanks for watching this. Thanks for supporting me. My fans, Dream Theater fans, are the best in the world, really. And, you know, and it's fans like you that keep making it possible for us to do projects like this. So thanks a lot.
I'm just gonna
And we'll see you on tour.
I mean, I can't
Stick around after this. There's some more bonus footage. And that's it. Mike Portnoy over and out. See ya. Well, just as this video had a little
That's it.
hidden bonus track, little hidden bonus footage at the end here, I guess so does the audio commentary. I just wanted to sneak this last shot in here of my daughter Melody. She was only a year old at this point. She's now 4.
This is my daughter Melody. I'm gonna give her a chance to jam, see if she's better than these two.
Both of my kids, Max as well, who was born in '99, they both love the drums, and they come with me on tour all the time and sit behind the drums. And, you know, I think there's a lot of entertaining stuff on here. Things that are probably enjoyable if you're just a fan, and if you're a drummer, hopefully you were able to pick up some things that you could utilize into your own playing. We just segued into the ending of A Change of Seasons. Yeah. Yay Rob, yay Paul. Thank you guys for calling me up to do this DVD. And we'll see you on tour. Occasionally, if you hear a gong bass drum being played totally out of time,
Okay, time
it's
for
not
Daddy
me.
to go back to work.
It's them. All right, Mello, I'm coming home. You too, Max. See ya.